The Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. What's up, nerds? ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and your smart speaker. Did the Bucks do enough to keep Giannis around? Gonna hit that in a little bit. Got a lot of thoughts about that. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You know, what are the Nets about to do in New York? Remember when the Knicks used to play in New York? Yo, no one's thinking about the Knicks anymore. The Knicks are a pathetic, laughingstock joke because a fish rots from the head down, Jim Dolan. But I'm going to stop being so nice to Dolan in a little while. You're going to hear me really go in on him, Raj. That was nice. That was with the kids' gloves on. Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. ESPN Nation is presented by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football's back. And so is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to a nice cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. But first, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. James Harden rejects the Rockets' extension offer with a focus on the Nets. I didn't even know you could offer a guy $50 million. I guess certain number of years in the league, what a salary already is, all these kind of complicated cap rules. Nets offered him 2 years, $103 million. First ever $50 million player. I remember Michael Jordan when he started going year to year toward the end of his career. Because, Reinsdorf had him way under market for most of his career. Then Jordan started taking like $27 million a year. But I want to say the max contract that you could get back then was like $12 million. I don't remember how they got Jordan for 27. He was making like literally 2.5, 3 times what the next highest paid guy was making per year. But if you have a certain number of years in the league, certain number of years with the same team, you're already at a certain level of your salary. All that affects what you can be offered. But $50 million a year. James Harden said no to $50 a year. And I don't blame him. If you're past 30 and you've never won a championship and you don't believe the franchise that you're on is going to win a championship or get you the help you need, or is rudderless, or is not what you're used to or going in the direction you prefer, then this is it. Like, Harden might be looking like, I might be an effective basketball player 3 years from now, but there's no guarantee that I'm in my prime still. I'm in my prime now. I don't know how many years left I have in my 30s at this level. I want to win a championship now. I get it. And that's not going to be in Houston. I mean, look, part of the problem is he didn't come up big when they needed him most. On the other hand, he led a team with almost no talent on it compared to the Warriors and took them to a Game 7 and had a home game for that Game 7 and didn't have Chris Paul available to him. And he didn't shoot it well, but neither did anyone else. But I get it. He wants to go somewhere where he can win a championship. He sees Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, and he knows they're not going to move Kyrie, right? But even if they did somehow, Harden and KD and Dinwiddie and LeVert, or Harden and Kyrie and KD, you got to get to the finals with that team, you would think. I have a star rating system, right? 5 stars is an MVP caliber player. 4 is an all-star. 3 is a starter. 2 is a rotation piece. 1 is a replacement level player. If you have 2 5-star players on the same team, you're probably going to get to a finals at least. KD is a 5-star player. Even if he's not 100% himself after the Achilles, he's going to be a 4.5. Harden's a 5. They're both MVP caliber players when last seen in action. And Kyrie is not just a 4. He's a 4+. He's a 4.5 or something like that. Teams with that kind of talent on them make the finals at least. Even if you just stacked up the talent, that Nets team would have more talent than they would be likely to achieve at that level. In other words, If you could take that same talent and make the right pieces fit better, that would be a better team. Nevertheless, you just figure out how to make it work if you have KD and Harden and Kyrie on the same team. But how could they do that? How could the Nets afford Kyrie, Harden, and KD? Well, the guy who broke all this with his Woj bombs, there's more than one, right? ESPN's NBA insider. Do I really have to label Woj? He's a cottage industry unto himself. Adrian Wojnarowski. How could the Nets afford Kyrie, Harden, and KD?
They have an owner in Brooklyn and Josiah who is willing to go deep in luxury tax, and having 3 max players and a player like Joe Harris you're going to have to re-sign in this offseason. It would be an expensive proposition. There aren't a lot of teams in this pandemic right now who would be willing to spend the way the Nets would be to do a deal like this, take on Harden's money long term.
The thing is, the Nets are about to own New York for a generation. The Knicks, listen, Knicks fans, Dolan can't hurt you anymore. I used to, the Max Kellerman show in New York City 10 years ago, whatever it was, 15 years ago. I used to call, have a Knicks fan hotline. If you felt you were being abused by the owner, you could call in. Right? Well, Dolan can't hurt you anymore. Back then, there wasn't a lot of options, right? What could you do? Just not root for your hometown team? Because the Nets played in Jersey. Nets are in Brooklyn. A team grows in Brooklyn. Do you realize Brooklyn's been without a championship since 1955 and without a major league team since 1957 when Walter O'Malley picked up and left for L.A.? Do you understand? The late, great Jack Newfield, editor at the Village Voice, writer for the New York Post, author of books. Remember Don King, The Life and Crimes of Don King, Only in America? Remember that book? It was made into an HBO movie. That was Jack Newfield. Jack Newfield used to have boxing, how would I put it, soirees at his house, right? Teddy Atlas and me, before we were on TV together, a whole bunch of people would go over to Jack Newfield's house and watch old fights leading up to a pay-per-view fight. And there'd be about 15 or 20 people in the room. It was funny, about half of the guys who weren't in the boxing industry were FBI and the other half were mob. Like in the same room watching old fights. That's the boxing crowd. Anyway, Jack Newfield used to say, he used to call them the 3 antichrists of the 20th century. He would literally name 2 dictators, I don't even want to drop their names on the radio, and Walter O'Malley, who took the Brooklyn Dodgers to L.A. That's how people from Brooklyn felt about it. And then the Nets come to Brooklyn, a basketball obsessed. New York is basketball before it's anything else. By the way, by far. The reason it's baseball is because the Yankees are the greatest franchise in the history of world sports. By far, by the way. So if you have that, of course, people will pay attention to it because you're usually winning championships. And football is huge in the rest of the country, and it's big in New York too, but Giants are big in New York. But basketball is the New York game because there's not a lot of space. But you can play basketball with one person with very little space, or 5-on-5, right? Basketball is called the New York game. And yet in New York, we've been subjected to the most pathetic franchise, the Knicks. They're such a disgusting laughingstock that they can't get people to take their money. Remember, we're trading Kristaps Porzingis because we're trying to build for the future. Hold on, dummies. You're trading a franchise unicorn on his rookie deal to build for the future? Do you remember the Houston Rockets going, we have to trade Hakeem because we need draft picks for the future? the Spurs going, we got to get rid of Duncan. Draft picks for the future. Dirk Nowitzki on his rookie deal in Dallas. Draft picks for the future. Could you imagine? Nonsense. And then they wound up with Julius Randle. It's the only guy who would take their money. Here's $10 million. Hey, will you take it, Julius Randle? We can't get anyone else to take it. Julius Randle's like, great, I can't get anyone else to give me the money. It was $10 million a year, wasn't it? It wasn't $20 million a year. Who said 20? Was that Chris saying 20?
It was $80 million.
Anyway, the point is, they gave Julius Randle $80 for 4?
Got him that Tim Hardaway Jr.
better than
contract.
I thought. Anyway, oh my God, it's so good. All right, anyway, What choice did you have now that against that backdrop? No team in Brooklyn in any sport. Not only do you get a team in Brooklyn after 65 years, but it's a basketball team. That's what the city really wants. And it's not just a basketball team. It's Dr. J's old franchise. And it's not just Dr. J's old franchise. KD and Kyrie are on it. And it's not just that KD and Kyrie are on it. James Harden wants to play there. Do you understand if you win a championship? Let me give you a little evidence. In maybe 86 or 87, you get great seats to a Yankee game, it was $100. A Giants game, maybe it was $200, something like that. If you wanted to sit courtside for a Knicks game, floor seats for a Knicks game, it was $1,500. $1,500. There was it was the only place in Manhattan, right? Brooklyn's right there, though. It's not like you got to go out to Jersey or way up to the Bronx. And it's basketball. And do you understand if the Nets, no one's thinking about the Knicks, if the Nets got Harden, even if they don't, just with KD and Kyrie, what do you think floor seats are going to cost for the Nets? If you win a championship in Brooklyn, Brooklyn rings bells around the world in a way that, like, I was born in the Bronx. My parents are from the Bronx. If you're from New York, it's a cool place to be. But around the world, people are naming their kids Brooklyn in, like, China, right? It rings. You win a championship with the Brooklyn Nets? That was Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. Scoop Jackson, ESPN senior writer's on the phone. What's up, Scoop?
Man, what's up, Max? I'm telling you right now, this is going to be a boring segment right here because you and I agree on everything right now. So I'm telling you right now, it's going to be boring. Especially,
well, maybe we'll find disagreement.
I was watching you this morning. Everything you said this morning, I was agreeing with you with. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go on Max show. It's going to be bad.
Well, listen, that's quite an intro that you just gave yourself.
Everything you said, I agree with. Everything you say right now, I agree with.
See, Scoop, here's the thing. I think you're entertaining enough even if we're agreeing. Apparently, you lack self-confidence.
No, I love self-confidence. I like it better when me and you are like the two old men on the Muppets. And then,
yeah,
right,
the judges.
Right, the judges, yeah. But see, now,
That's
I think we're going to be more like, Ebony and Ivory, 10 Speed and Brown shoes. So, whatever.
Who's Ebony? All right, listen, let me ask you something. Scoop, let me ask you something. I was arguing about this with Stephen A. on the air today. I say if Harden winds up on the Nets and they don't trade, I bring up the late, great Dr. Jerry Buss, greatest owner by so much it's ridiculous in the history of American team sports. He told Kobe when Kobe wanted to trade. Kobe wanted to go to the Clippers. Right. Dr. Buss said, Kobe, you're a 5-carat diamond. I'm not breaking you down into 5 1-carat diamonds. How do I get equal value for you, right? So if you're the Rockets, you have Harden, you're looking at the Nets like, I like LeVert, I like Dinwiddie, I like a draft pick. Yo, y'all ain't getting Harden without upping at least Kyrie Irving, right?
Exactly.
But let's say somehow they keep Kyrie and add Harden. What I say in year one, you must make the finals. But considering you just came together, you don't have to win it year one. You have to win it together at some point, but maybe not year one. Where do you stand on that?
I agree. You said that earlier this morning. I agree with you right now. I think there will be pressure on them to, win it in game one. But I think it doesn't all fall apart if they don't. A lot of it will focus on how they lost. Like I said, they at least have to get out of the East, and then they have to at least show up in the finals. But I don't, especially if there's a 3-year, if there's a window and everybody's contract lines up and they're at least there for 3 years, then they have to win at least 1 or 2 of them within that 3-year period while together. But the pressure's only on them to make it to the finals and get out of the East, probably at least. And once again, it's how they lose if they lose. If they get blown out, that was one of the problems that we had in Houston. I know you're probably going to want to talk about James Harden in the Houston situation, but a lot of Houston's problem wasn't the fact that they lost, it's how they lost every year. Yeah. And if Brooklyn, if they get all 3, which I'm not with anyway, but if they do get all 3, it's going to be in year one more about how they lost than the fact that they did lose. So,
if they get to if they lose in the finals, talking to Scoop Jackson.
If they get to the Eastern Conference Finals and they wind up playing Miami, a team who was just in the finals last year, a team who's probably going to come back stronger with a year of playing together under their belt. If they lose to Miami in 7 and don't make it out of the East, if the games are tight and they don't get blown out, they will be understanding about, well, hell, Miami is that team. They were focused on doing this. They were more prepared because they were together last year. They're actually more advanced, even with as team chemistry goes, than the Nets are this year. We won't accept this next year, but right now there could be an understanding of why Miami could beat them in the conference finals, depending on how they lose.
Or Milwaukee. We get to that in a second.
Exactly.
Scoop Jackson. You can check him out on ESPN Plus right now. His picture's up there from when he used to be a New Edition, apparently. Why'd you leave that group? That you guys were making hits.
Hey, man.
I just saw you dancing around in Mr. Telephone, man.
Me and Ralph Travis, baby. You know how we do it.
Hey, so speaking of the Milwaukee Bucks, they trade for Drew Holiday and Bogdanovich, but Bogdan, not Bojan,
right.
The Bogdanovich, yeah, right. But from the Kings. So let's back up for a second. Malcolm Brogdon, they let him walk out the door, and I get what's his name from the Bills, from the Bulls. Mirotic wanted to play in Europe. If they would have kept him, he was excellent. Like to me, had he been healthy in that original run they made, maybe things are different. But he leaves. But Brogdon, you had a chance to keep and grandfather in under the cap, but you'd have had to pay luxury tax. Right. But right now with Brogdon, they could have made a deal for a superstar. They didn't have him. That ship has sailed. You know what I think, Scoop? The deal they just made, I see them trimming a lot of fat. The only guy I really like is DiVincenzo, and he may be years away, right? If he ever develops into something really worthwhile. Otherwise, I don't care about anything they lost in that deal, but they get back. Not only is Bogdanovich a shooter, but he's a playmaker. Yeah. He's one of those, bigs who can really move the ball, right? Yeah. And Drew Holiday.
He'll probably play better in this system in Milwaukee than he did in Sacramento too. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sure, ball movement and shooting.
Exactly.
And Drew Holiday is a quasi bubble kind of all-star player in the regular season, but a superstar in the playoffs who really locked down defends and can hit big shots and can play make. When I look at this construction right now, Scoop, you got that second playmaker behind Giannis. You got a 3-and-D guy plus in Middleton, like a poor man's Klay Thompson sort of, but like an all-star caliber guy. You have Brook Lopez who can defend the rim and bomb. Like, you got a lot of stuff on this team all of a sudden. All 5 positions, it's like can shoot and defend.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, Drew Holiday is the version of Eric Bledsoe they thought they were getting when they made the trade to get him from Phoenix. That's what Drew Holiday is. So he completes everything that you're trying to do in Milwaukee. But here's the thing. The only thing I disagree with you on is that we may not be having this conversation, Max, if they make, and I don't know if the money was there, I have to go back and think about it, but if they decided a year ago to keep Brogdon and then let Bledsoe go, I think we may not be having this conversation about Milwaukee because Brogdon probably would have done and serviced them to cover up some of the mistakes and some of the blanks they weren't getting in the bubble, in the playoffs against the Miami that Drew Bledsoe didn't come through and do. I think Brogdon was much more reliable. I'm saying they may have gone.
Drew Holiday's like a better version of Brogdon.
But I'm saying is that if they advance past Milwaukee because of Brogdon's play, then we may not be having this conversation, and somebody else may be going there. Right? That's what I'm saying because Eric Bledsoe.
Scoop, what I'm saying, but I'm bringing up.
He didn't come through, and Brogdon I think would have come through. That's basically what I'm saying.
Right, but although Brogdon had an off year last year, but I'm bringing up this because when you look at the Nets, they have better upper end talent, but the pieces don't fit just right. You have a couple of ball stoppers. You have KD coming off injury. When you look at the Bucks, they don't have the same talent. That usually means you're not going to win. The more talented the team with the more upper echelon talented guys win. But Drew Holiday running your point.
Yeah, I love it.
With Bogdanovich and Middleton and Lopez surrounding the freak, those pieces seem to fit almost perfectly together. Like, that's ideal. Do you think they would have a shot to knock off the Nets, the Bucks would, with this current configuration if the Nets got Harden?
If the Nets got Harden, I think if the Nets get Harden, anybody has a chance to really beat the Nets in a 7-game series because there's going to be no defense there. And the culture of what the Nets are, especially with a first-year coach like Steve Nash, is going to be vacant. It's not going to be there. They're not even going to have any culture. They're going to try to figure out what their culture is with a first-time coach. I don't really see that happening. So there's a lot of teams, and with the Bucks included, that could beat the Nets if they do get Harden. But here's the thing. My question to you about the Bucks is, will Drew Holiday make Giannis a better player in 7-game situations when it comes to the playoffs? Because as great as Giannis is,
I think so.
Right. Now, if he can do that, then the Bucks are going to be a problem. And they have to find a way to not base everything they're doing offensively on Giannis when he gets into situations and schemes that he can't be Giannis in. And we've seen that the
Well,
last
that's the
2
point
years.
of Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday can take over ball handling responsibilities at a high and clutch level. And Giannis can be in the dunker spot or like use the way Ben Simmons sometimes is instead of running the show. Because Holiday is like souped up Rondo. Rondo's not very good in the regular season. He's excellent in the playoffs. Holiday is very good in the regular season, and he's great in the playoffs. Like the Bucks are going to be a problem. They need to deepen the team a little bit now. They don't have as the depth they used to have, but that starting five is going to be a problem. Both the Bucks and Phoenix really have impressive starting fives. And Scoop Jackson, ladies and gentlemen, joined us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. I don't know why he left New Edition, Raj. Can we see that picture again on ESPN Plus? Look at that. Cool it now. You got to slow it down. Do you remember why they were called New Edition, Raj?
Because they were going to be the new
What was that
thing.
a reference to?
The Beatles.
No. Think.
The Jackson 5.
Yes. Yes, the Jackson 5. The Beatles. New Edition was like the new version of the Jackson 5. This is 1983, I want to say. Popcorn love, but it's more than I remember that well. Max Kellerman Show, presented by Progressive Insurance, but then Scoop left the band and left the group, and that's when it all started going downhill.
You can do it.
Scoop was like, yeah, this is good, but can we see that picture one more time on ESPN Plus? This is Scoop from when he was in New Edition. And once he left, it was all downhill after that. You know, he thought he could make some money in the sports commentary business. And he thought, like, New Edition was just a passing fad, so he left the group. Max Kellerman Show, presented by Progressive Insurance. Cars, homes, boats, motorcycles, RVs, and more at Progressive.com. After starting 5-1, is it a wrap for the Chicago Bears? 2020 has changed the world of sports. Some teams are modifying their stadiums and arena, while others are letting fans buy virtual seats in the stands. These changes have created demand for unexpected roles, from plexiglass screen installers to video platform support specialists. But that's why Scoop left New Edition originally. He thought he was going to become a video support specialist. Will you let me run it into the ground? If you let me beat it up enough, then it becomes funny again, Raj. We're in the stage where it's not funny anymore, but then I got to keep doing it till it gets funny again. Whether you need to hire for new positions like these or more familiar positions, there's only one place to go, ZipRecruiter, and right now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/max. ZipRecruiter's matching technology finds the right people for your job and actively invites them to apply. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's why you should try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/max. That's ZipRecruiter.com/max. Chicago, is it a wrap for the Bears?
We're back on Wednesday, and the Browns may regret drafting Baker Mayfield first overall, but finally, do they no longer regret passing on Wentz and Watson? Keyshawn, J. Will Zubin, 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
More from the Max Kellerman Show next.
We saved big money with our Progressive Home and Auto Bundle and used the cash to take a family vacation.
To Hawaii.
Who's up for a luau?
Yay!
This is not a real testimonial. Sure, customers can save big money with Progressive, but not enough to go to Hawaii. They'll probably use it for things like the mortgage and groceries, or even a travel magazine, so at least they can see pictures of Hawaii.
Aloha!
Yes, say hello to those beautiful Hawaiian beaches in that magazine. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
At Shell, we know from the time you get up to the time you wrap up,
Good night.
There's a lot of meetups, eat-ups, and hurry-ups. So come to Shell and get 3 things done at once. Fill up with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus to help keep your engine running like new. Save up with the Fuel Rewards program and never pay full price for gas.
The Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, your smart speaker. Chicago, where do the Cubs turn to after Theo Epstein has stepped down? Boy, Chicago is going through some rough sports times now. The Bears got no O-line. Nick Foles is carted off. You blew it on the Trubisky draft. The White Sox hire Tony La Russa, who shows up with a DUI, and who Jack McDowell, former White Sox ace and Cy Young Award winner and two-time 20-game winner with the White Sox in the late 80s, or was that it might have been early 90s, talks about there was a sign-stealing scheme in place installed, as far as he knows, by Tony La Russa. And Reinsdorf hires La Russa because he felt guilty, according to Jeff Passan, about letting him go once upon a time. Oof. And now Theo Epstein steps down from at least Cubs fans. Like, yeah, but we have Epstein running the show. Not anymore. Max Kellerman Show, presented by Progressive Insurance, also Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Monday Night Football, Chicago's fourth straight loss after starting the season 5-1. You know what? I'm going to prove to you right now I'm going to take calls. Right now. And then I'm going to talk about the Bears. Because, Raj, too much time goes by. I don't take calls. I promise I will. I promise I will. I like making fun of the callers. Did I say that out loud? Mitch in New Jersey, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Max, how you doing? Good show.
Thank you, Mitch.
That is a good move by Milwaukee. I want to see Giannis stay in Milwaukee. But the Nets, full of James Harden, I still think you got to favor the Nets making it to the finals against.
Hold on, you're a little bit nervous, Mitch. You're a little bit nervous. Let's start again. Let's. This is how you do. I'm going to show you how to do a radio call. I used to be a caller on radio talk, sports talk radio as a kid. Raj, I've told you, Art Rust Jr. talking sports. And when they put you on hold and you're waiting and you're listening to the show. And like you get nervous, your heart's beating faster, and then they click you on, and it's different now. Now you're talking through the phone and everything, and you sometimes get tripped up. So let's go back, Mitch. Let's start in the beginning. The way you do it is lead with your strongest point or best question. Do you want to make a point about Giannis? You want to see Giannis stay in Milwaukee. Why? You see what I mean? Is that what you want to say, or do you want to focus on Harden and the Nets, Mitch? Which one do you want to focus on?
Harden and the Nets. If they
Okay, great. What is it that you want to say? We're going to construct a proper call so everyone can hear it now. What is it you want to say about Harden and the Nets? What's your point?
If they can trade him without giving up Kyrie Durant, obviously, I think they would be highly favored in that conference to reach the finals and hopefully against our Clippers.
Now I'm going to show you something. Hold on. Let's stop. Now I'm going to show you something Michael Thompson, the greatest program director I ever worked with, used to teach me, and he was my program director in New York and LA, actually, and when he was with ESPN, and used to teach me about doing this, right? So you make a point. So here's your point, Mitch. Your point is that you think if they can they can get Harden without giving up Kyrie or obviously KD, they should win it all, right? Is that what your point is?
Well, at least get to the finals. You still got.
At least get to the finals. So Michael Thompson would sit there and go, not the basketball player, the program director would say, and he would just sit there, keep saying, and. So I'm going to do that to you. Ready for this? Raj, I'm producing a radio call
You're doing
now.
pretty well.
So they would at least get to the finals if they can keep Kyrie and Harden, and
get James Harden. And they do have, they're kind of deep. They have a pretty good roster. I think they still have a few first-round picks this year or in the coming. Maybe they have a mid-level exception, and maybe this time they can get over
They have
the
a
hump.
mid-level obsession. All right, Mitch, this has gone as far as it can. Thank you for the call. See, now, if it was what Mitch should have said is something like, and, like, you get to a point. What Mitch's point seems to me to be, Raj, is that it doesn't matter exactly how the talent fits. It's that when you have what Dr. Jerry Buss called, the late, great Dr. Jerry Buss, greatest owner in the history of American team sports by far, a 5-carat diamond, you don't break it down into a smaller diamond. In the history of the NBA, the winner of the deal is the team that gets the best player. So what he's saying is get James Harden and add Harden to Kyrie, who's special, and KD, who's special. Don't swap him out for Kyrie. That would be something. See, this is what I get for taking a call right away. I should have just gotten to my point. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Mitch just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. I tried to coach him through a call, and maybe he'll do better next time. Seemed like a nice enough guy, Raj. Now, I want to get to the Bears. Look, Nick Foles was carted off after being slammed to the turf late in the fourth. I couldn't tell what it was at first. I was like, wait, was that his shoulder? Was it a rib? Was it at a certain point, he was like, couldn't move his foot. I was like, was it an ankle? What the hell just happened? And even on replay, I was like, I guess it's his shoulder-ish. I was hoping it wasn't his neck, right? Because they were stabilizing him. I'm like, hopefully it's not the upper part of his spine. And it turns out it's a hip pointer. That's like the best news he could get, right? A bruise, where your hip points out, it's a deep bruise. That's a hip pointer. They carted him off. Could have been a lot worse. Matt Nagy said Foles was still being examined by team doctors and suffered either a leg or a hip injury. Look, this is what I was thinking as I watched Nick Foles go down. Nick Foles has not played well. But Nick Foles is not a guy who's going to elevate a team with a bad offensive line without depth at receiver, that kind of thing. If you protect Nick Foles and block for the run, and you have some guys who can catch the ball, Nick Foles will not only not stop you, and a defense, he needs a lot, but not only will he not stop you from winning, he'll wind up being the reason you win. He'll come through in the clutch. He'll manage the game and come through in the clutch. He's an average NFL quarterback, which is a pretty good thing. But he's not the fastest guy in the world. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He can throw the ball down the field. He is, and he's a leader. Guys like playing with him. So I'm not so down on Nick Foles as everyone else, even though he's been terrible. The offensive line. The Bears didn't have a good offensive line coming into the season. They have 4 injuries. 4 of their starters are down, plus some guys who back up the starters. They're playing 3rd, 4th stringers in some cases on the offensive line. At least 3rd stringers. And it's a bad line to begin with. It's garbage. They can't block anyone. They can't help the running backs out. They can't protect Nick Foles. And they only have one real receiver in Allen Robinson. The other guys are just okay. And you've heard about Casey Joyner, the football scientist, on this show, how he's talked about run blocking. A great running back behind bad run blocking gets 2 yards a carry, 3 yards a carry. A bad running back behind great run blocking, 7 yards a carry. Right? So they have no run blocking, and they can't keep the quarterback clean, and they don't have a receiving core. But here's the point. I am 47 years old. I've never seen the Bears with a great quarterback, ever. Jim McMahon, you're going to tell me that this guy, he was okay. He was fine. He's a media personality. They did it with that defense, the 85 Bears. And since then, this is how popular the Bears are in Chicago. I feel your pain, Chicago. If you're listening on Sirius XM right now, or if you need to check out the podcast, I hear you in Chicago. I feel your pain. Because think back to the Bulls dynasty for a second. And Jake, I'm going to go over a little bit right now. Think back to the Bulls dynasty for a second. They had Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was the most famous and greatest athlete in the history of the world. Chicago had Michael Jordan in his prime with other Hall of Famers. They won the championship every year. And on Saturday Night Live, you know what the big joke was? The Bears. That was the Bears hadn't done anything since 85. Jordan was winning the championship every year, setting the world on fire. No one's ever seen anything like him before or since. The Bears. What about the Bulls? It was about the Bears. And the Bears in my lifetime, you know who the best quarterback is since McMahon, who was okay? Jay Cutler. It's a competition between Jay Cutler and Kyle Orton and Rex Grossman. This is the Chicago quarterback situation in my lifetime. Bears fans deserve something better than this. They miss every time. They traded up for Trubisky in a draft with Patrick Mahomes. They traded up for Trubisky, who lost his job to Nick Foles, who can't get protected by an offensive line. If you're a Bears fan, how do you stand for this? How do you stand for this? A town that's more obsessed with football than just about anywhere on earth, who once had the greatest football team of all time, the 85 Bears, has never had a single quarterback. Still, year in and year out, just excuses. 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776. Axe Max coming up. The Max Kellerman Show, presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who save with Progressive save over $750 on average. Call or click today to find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. 888-SAY-ESPN, Max.
ESPN serves sports fans anytime, anywhere. ESPN Plus. More sports, more leagues, more teams, more ESPN. Download the ESPN app or visit ESPN.com today.
This is the Max Kellerman Show.
Adding a leader you need right when you need them. That's how sports teams get ahead and how your business can too. LinkedIn will match the right talent with your open roles fast. Post a job and you'll get great candidates with the right mix of skills, interest, and experience. So every hire you make is a win for your business. Go to linkedin.com/sports and get $50 off your first job post. That's linkedin.com/sports. Terms and conditions apply.
Keeping my lining, Raj. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776. The NBA rumors are on fire right now. Lakers reloading. Bucks trying to keep Giannis. Nets might get a big three. The NBA offseason is breaking moves.
Is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Build your winning team today. Go to linkedin.com/sports.
X. Max.
By the way, Suns might have a big three if Chris Paul's effect on DeAndre Ayton is what it might be. DeAndre Ayton's not far from an all-star. Chris Paul and Devin Booker are two of a big three. If Ayton takes another step, that's an all-star. That's a big three. James in Los Angeles. You're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Well, thanks for having me. You know, Giannis, he means a lot to the young people in Wisconsin, and they responded by showing up to vote. They love him. And it would be a shame for him to leave. I mean, he means so much to the people there, and it's bigger than
here's
basketball.
the thing. Listen, I hear you, and I think he wanted to stay. Here's the thing. Those three guys who own the Bucks played Milwaukee cheap. If you want to be big shot billionaires who own a basketball team in a market like Milwaukee and you have an asset like Brogdon, but you don't want to pay luxury tax, so you let him leave for nothing. If you just pay the luxury tax and sign him up, you've now grandfathered in an escalated cap number, really. And now you can break moves, Raj. Breaking moves, but you can make moves for real. You can maneuver with that. You can use him in a package to bring in a Chris Paul or whomever. Can't do that now. So they've done the best they could since then. I think they made a very good deal in the short term to bring in Drew Holiday and Bogdanovich. But if Giannis leaves, it ain't his fault. It's the Milwaukee Bucks cheap owners. I don't want to hear about a luxury tax from billionaires. Sell your team to a really rich guy in that case. And shut up. A town like Milwaukee has a chance to win a championship every once in a billion years. And you guys played them cheap. But that's a nice recovery, Raj. Bringing in Bogdanovich and Drew Holiday, given the screw-up of not re-signing Brogdon, bringing in those two guys, it gives you a fighting chance at least. Mike in Chicago, you're on the Max Kellerman Show. You got 30 seconds.
Hey, Max, love the show. Thanks. I appreciate your passion. Fits in with Chicago. It's really not part of the Bears' business model, right? If you look at all the statistics, how many quarterbacks have you had when the Packers only had two or the Patriots have only had a couple, right? It's a laundry list. And I think it's just not part of the business model. Yeah. As a season ticket holder, I see it firsthand. I get the communications. Even who tweeted this morning? It was one of the Bears players. He matched up how many yards Cordero Patterson had.
Yeah, I know, I get it, but when you say not part of the business model, they traded up to get Trubisky. Had they just taken Patrick Mahomes, then it is part of the business model. In other words, we can't excuse the fact that they don't know what the hell they're looking at in college quarterbacks, and then if they do, they don't know how to develop them. Harden turned down what? To go where?
This is the Max Kellerman Show. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio.
The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speakers. And the Saints keep it going without Drew Brees for a little bit. Is it just going to be a little bit? Talk about that in a few. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I'm glad to hear he is talking about Ian Book. Ian Book deserves credit. Got Notre Dame he can play. Uiagalelei was pretty good. Notre Dame beat Clemson. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. James Harden rejects the Rockets' extension of $103 million over the next 2 years, would become the first $50 million a year player in history. Not just in NBA history. There's not been a player in any major American team sport who's made $50 a year on average. Not one, not that I can think of. Major League Baseball, the highest average annual, at least until recently, was Mike Trout's extension, I believe. Giancarlo Stanton was up there, but even some of the pitchers like Garrett Cole, I don't think of any $50 million guys, and neither in the NFL. He'd have the highest average annual salary in the history of American team sports. James Harden turned it down. Told Fertitta, I'm out. Doesn't want to be there. Look. What do you do if you're Fertitta? Do you deal him where he wants to go? You know, I think there are some players who you're like, all right, look, I'm going to take care of you. Like, for example, when Steve Nash wanted to go to the Lakers at the end of his career, why would you trade him to a division rival, right, if you still think he had something left? And I think they did think he had something left. Turns out he didn't. But why would you do it? Because Steve Nash could credibly go to the owner and say, look, I didn't ring chase. I've been here the whole time. I've represented the city and the team well. I've given you my all. I'm 40 years old. We're not in a position to win right now, and they are. Would you send me there? That's legit, and I think the owner would be like, yeah, all right. Let's do him. Even if I don't love him playing for the other team, he's right. But James Harden, I don't know if Fertitta would be motivated to trade him to Brooklyn. Like, hold up, you're turning down $50 million plus a year from me, and telling me you want to go to what's Brooklyn? Brooklyn's not going to give me Kyrie. Why would I do it? But I had a thought about this. Let's say Brooklyn they're not going to break Harden down into component parts, right? Like, they're not going to say, here, we'll give you Harden. Give us Karis LeVert, who's a nice player, and Dinwiddie, who's also pretty good, and some draft picks, right? But what if it was Ben Simmons? Would you trade Harden for Simmons? I would. If Simmons' health checks out, you know. Well, how do you do that? Because Simmons doesn't play for the Nets. And I love Harden in Philly. I love Harden and Embiid. I like that a lot because that's a guy who wants to be competitive and is like, if Harden goes with Embiid and they win a championship, what Harden will have proved is he has a case for best player in basketball, right? Because just one more superstar and other pieces. If he goes to Brooklyn and they win a championship, what did he really prove? That we already know he's an MVP caliber player. So, yeah, if he joins another MVP caliber player and another guy close to it all on the same team, no kidding, you're supposed to win a championship after a couple of years. Duh. He didn't prove anything. So I'd rather see him in Philly. But let's say he really wants to get to the Nets. Do the Nets have a package? Could you do a three-way trade where it's in everyone's best interest? I think yes, actually, the more I've been thinking about it. If Simmons is coming off an injury and you think, yes, Simmons and Embiid are better off apart. It's not that they don't play very well together. It's that they'd be better off apart. Could the combination of LeVert and Dinwiddie and draft picks get Ben Simmons out of me? Yeah, I would think not only that, hey, Nets, could we arrange it so you take this Tobias Harris or Al Horford contract off my hands? The funny thing is, Harris and Horford have some value as players. It's just Horford has no value as a four. I was shocked when I found out Horford couldn't play the four. And it turns out he hasn't played the four at any level of his career, amateur or pro. Now think about this. Think of Horford's skill set. He can face the basket. He can shoot the three. He can shoot a mid-range. He can play in the post. He can defend in the post. He can block shots. He can defend out in space. He can pass the ball. He can take the ball up the floor if you need him to. He can't play the four? What? But he can't. He's terrible. He's a five. They figured Horford next to Embiid. I thought the same thing. Horford's so versatile. It's perfect. He can play next to anyone. No, he can't. But could he still play the five even though he hasn't looked? I'll bet you. I'll bet you in the right situation, Horford still has value there. He just doesn't have value compared to his contract. But if you can match the contracts up, maybe, because Simmons makes a lot of money. Wait, what did I just say? No, you can't take back both contracts if you're the Nets. But anyway, in a three-way deal, you may be able to do something. I haven't thought this through well enough. The point is, Dinwiddie, LeVert, and draft picks. Maybe that's the centerpiece of a deal for Simmons. Maybe. The Nets get some shooting and playmaking around Embiid. Sorry, the Sixers do. The Nets get Simmons, who they can swap for Harden. And the Rockets wind up with Simmons, who is like at least a 4.5 carat diamond. Like a really special player for Harden. Something like that. Damn, I was so close. I was thinking, yeah, Horford. Wait, Horford doesn't match up salaries with Simmons. They're both on the same team. That's why I'm not a GM, Raj. Dr. Pepper call-in line, 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776. But could you imagine? Like, there's so many. Think about what's going on in sports right now. Chicago. The Bears are the passion of that town. Forget about Reinsdorf screwing up the White Sox with La Russa. Or Epstein leaving the Cubs. Baseball is like, that's... But Chicago's not like crazy about baseball. They like baseball in Chicago. They like basketball in Chicago. But it's football town. And the Bears can't get the quarterback right. Think about Brooklyn. These are major markets, right? Think about Brooklyn. No championship since 1955 in Brooklyn. In a basketball-obsessed city, no championships of any kind since 1976, and that was in the ABA. That was Dr. J's Nets. No NBA championship since 73. And you have a team in Brooklyn that already has Kyrie and KD. It might also have James Harden. Oof. A lot going on right now. Drew Brees, by the way. Drew Brees. I got a lot to say about Drew Brees. Hold your horses on Drew Brees. But can you imagine Drew? Well, I'll tell you in a second. See, I'm teasing them, Raj. Sammy in Missouri. See how I said that? Like I'm really from Missouri.
Yeah, actually, nobody pronounces Missouri like that.
Damn.
But if I was the owner to the Rockets, I would go to HE double toothpicks before I trade James Harden. Like, who trades an MVP player in his prime or pretty close to his prime?
So you're going to lose him to free agency?
But I rather. When was the last time that?
Hold on. You'd rather lose him for nothing? Wait, you would rather get nothing for James Harden than a lot for him?
First off, he's not even an unrestricted free agent to what 2 years or something like that? Like, he better play this next year. I don't know where you think he's going. You better take him to the space station down in Houston and tell him, like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, you about to play here.
You just hit a C above C. You must be serious.
Oh, hey.
His voice went up and never came down for that, Raj.
Hey, I'm just saying.
He's not an unrestricted free agent for 2 years. He better play through this contract.
Too good of a player for you just to trade away, man. Like, even if, like...
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying. But listen, the bottom line is if a dude's not bluffing, if you're like, okay, let me see if he's serious. I'll give you $103 million over the next 2 years, and he says, keep your money, then you have to know I'm going to lose him for nothing. And you'd rather get a lot for him than nothing for him, unless you feel we're going to win a championship next year with James Harden. Because if you don't feel that way, like if it was an inflection point like that, a moment of incredibly high leverage where we're going to win a championship in the next 2 years with Harden, then okay, I understand you saying, and then we'll lose him for nothing if he wants to leave. But in the meantime, we'll have a ring. That ain't the Rockets right now. Sammy in Missouri. It's not the Rockets. It's not Missouri. It's Missouri, Raj. It was news from Max Kellerman Nation. Sammy just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line to say, James Harden really in 2 years more left on his contract, not an unrestricted free agent.
I tell you what, if New Edition needs to replace Scoop Jackson, they can go to Sammy to hit that high note.
That's right. Scoop, can we see that picture of Scoop on ESPN Plus again? Do we have that ready? Look at this. This dude used to be in New Edition. I never knew. AJ in California, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
What's happening, Max?
There he is, Scoop Jackson on ESPN Plus. You need to get ESPN Plus just to see Scoop Jackson. Tresvan and those guys, man. I don't know why he thought he'd make more money sports commentating. Go ahead. Who am I talking to right now?
AJ.
AJ? What's up, AJ?
Listen, as a longtime Bears fan. I appreciate you, bringing this to the surface. But, man, this is ridiculous. How is it that the Packers can get their coach right, their GM right, their quarterback right, and us Bears, for how many years we've been suffering this? And then, look, you have someone like Ryan Pace. Have we heard from Ryan Pace?
By the way, I brought up Ryan Pace on First Take today. That's right. Everyone's going at Nagy. Ryan Pace is the GM.
That's why I said I appreciate you bringing this to the table, because you're the only one that's doing it. No one else is calling this guy. He's the one that gave up the draft picks to go get Trubisky.
That's right. And you know why I'm the one doing it? Because I'm the heart and soul of Chicago, Raj, along with Philadelphia and Houston, obviously New York and L.A.
Dallas.
I'm the voice of Chicago sports.
Mm-hmm.
But this is ridiculous.
Who else in the national media, AJ, who else in the national media is talking about Ryan Pace?
No one.
And bringing it to him and standing up for long-suffering Chicago Bears fans.
No one.
Do you understand? I am almost
Not even
48
Michael Wilbon,
years
that's
old.
a Bears fan. Not even Michael Wilbon
That's right.
has the guts to get up there and say anything about Ryan Pace.
Well, he has guts, but that's not the point. The point is, I'm the one repping Chicago sports fans.
And I
know you're listening to me on
that. And all
Sirius
the Bears
XM
fans
in Chicago.
it.
I'm glad they appreciate it. Bears fans, I'm telling you, there is no team in professional sports that means more to their fan base than the Bears mean to the Chicago fan base. None. I bring it up again. Saturday Night Live used to have one of the most famous skits, "Da Bears." Like even today, people who don't understand the reference have heard the reference, "Da Bears." That was done through the Michael Jordan era. The Bears were giving them nothing. One championship in '85, greatest team ever. Michael Jordan, the biggest star and greatest athlete in the history of the world, right? In the history of Earth, Jordan's number one. And you have him in his prime with other Hall of Famers in 2 three-peats. He came back. Oh, my God, Jordan's back. Three-peated again. And not only that, the most exciting player, jumped the highest, ran the fastest, everything. And in the middle of that, SNL's doing skits, "Da Bears," because Chicago, it's not that they didn't care about the Bulls. It's even through that, the Bears were. Mike Ditka, who was perceived as such a bad head coach to win a championship, that they carried off Buddy Ryan with him. Ditka was like, they used to talk about him in that skit. He was a god. Because they won a championship, and they were giving you nothing. And yet it wasn't about Jordan and the Bulls. It was about the Bears. And in this whole time, honestly, Jay Cutler's the best quarterback you had. Jay Cutler's not good. It's the best quarterback the Bears had. Kyle Orton. How many years was Kyle Orton the Bears quarterback? Or Rex Grossman. Are you joking? And then you trade up for Mitch Trubisky? He's fast. Trubisky is fast. He's very fast. That's great. He's very fast. He can outrun linebackers. Can't throw the ball down the field or read defense, but he can outrun linebackers. That's true. You should play him at another position. Remember how often they used to say that about black quarterbacks, Raj? Maybe he can be a wideout, even about Lamar Jackson. That's what I'm going to say about Trubisky. Maybe he can be a wideout.
Warren Moon.
Play him at wideout. He might be a good wideout. Can he catch?
Warren Moon. Let's put him at cornerback.
Let's put him at corner. Warren Moon had to go to Canada.
True story.
Warren Moon had to go to Canada. Mitch Trubisky was taking over Patrick Mahomes. And Deshaun Watson. Oh, my God. Bears fans are like, are you kidding? Raj, I'll bet you that there are racist Bears fans even who are like, let's get a black quarterback. Like, I don't, like, but you know what? But it's not about the race of the quarterback. It's about not excluding a group as a potential pool of talent, right? That's really what it's about. Although I think the Bears draft, they had Jason Campbell for a minute.
But Washington drafted him, right? But they had him. Yeah.
Right. I think the Bears had Campbell for a minute. He was a backup for a second. Maybe don't exclude an entire group of people. Might be a good idea. Even teams, by the way, even teams like the New York Yankees, and for years the Yankees resisted integrating. And I'm a Yankees fan. This is before my time, of course. And they said, and when people said why, they said, we're winning the World Series every year. Why? Well, we have the best players. But you know what? That way of thinking, because they continued to exclude an entire group of people as potential candidates for positions, Major League Baseball players, eventually teams like the Cardinals and others became dominant, and the Yankees spent a period of about 15 years stinking out the joint. because they fell behind the times. Kevin in Kansas City, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey, Max, I just want to know if you're dead serious or if you really think Nick Foles is an average quarterback. In my personal opinion, he's a below-average backup quarterback. Look at it.
I think you think he's a look. If you want to argue who's a below-average starter, we can debate that. But a below-average backup, no. But look, Nick Foles, look at his career. He was the second best quarterback in the Pac-12 only because Andrew Luck was in the Pac-12. He was better than Osweiler and better than Matt Barkley, who both made the NFL, and Osweiler was on a Super Bowl winning team, and he started for a lot of that year. Nick Foles, when he got to the Eagles under Chip Kelly, went 8-2 as a starter through 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. So far, it's like he was excellent at Arizona. He was excellent with Chip Kelly on the Eagles. That's twice so far. Right? Like, if he was below average, he couldn't really do that. However, under Jeff Fisher, he was no good. With the Jaguars, he was no good, right? But in between, he was back with the Eagles, DeFilippo as the quarterback's coach, right? And he won a Super Bowl. He took over for Nick Foles, for Carson Wentz, who put him in a great position to have home field. But he was the one who took over and won every single playoff game, including Super Bowl MVP against Tom Brady. So that's 3 times now he did it. What about the next year? Carson Wentz was sub 500. The Eagles were under 500, dead in the water. Foles takes over the team when Wentz gets hurt again. The very following year after the Super Bowl. They catch fire. They make the playoffs. They go to Chicago, beat the Bears, who a lot of people were saying could come out of the NFC because their defense was so good. Beat the Bears at Soldier Field. Go down to New Orleans where you can't win, right? And if the receiver turns around, Foles hit him in the chest. They might be the Saints too. Well, it wasn't Foles who lost that game. They came very close to beating the Saints after beating on the road, after beating the Bears on the road, after getting played into the playoffs when they were dead in the water and under 500. That's 4 times Nick Foles did it. You can't say that's below average or it's fluke or luck. 4 different times? No. But Nick Foles is not the guy to put behind a bad offensive line and a thin receiving core. Not the right fit. Justin in Phoenix, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey, Max. So bottom line, the Bears are just allergic to good quarterbacks for whatever reason. Maybe they're trying to be like John Elway in Denver. But my point is, stop teasing me with Drew Brees. What you got to say, man? That's my boy. Is it good news? Is it bad news? You gonna talk crap about him, or you gonna be nice?
Okay.
And secondly,
this is what I'm going to tell you. That's a very good question.
When are you gonna be back?
I'm going to get into the next segment. Huh?
When are you and Michelle gonna have a reunion and get Sports Nation back together? I want to see that happen.
Well, Michelle's the home girl for sure. Marcellus the home boy, of course. We used to do Max and Marcellus in L.A. on the radio for 6 years in afternoon drive. I don't know if there's going to be ever a Sports Nation reunion. Maybe. Who knows? I've never done a Around the Horn reunion show. I was the original host on that show. As it pertains to Drew Brees, is it good news or bad news, according to me? A lot of people would look at this, crushed ribs and a collapsed lung, 40-plus years old, thinking about retiring last year, and say, boy, this is terrible. It might be. But the Home Depot improves things. This holiday season, the Home Depot improved Black Friday. Instead of one day of crazy, the Home Depot lowered prices now, and they'll stay low through December. I'm going to tell you about Drew Brees coming up. From decorations to dishwashers, wreaths to ratchet sets, sleep in. You're not going to miss Black Friday, not one little bit. Black Friday improved. After the commercial break, you're going to hear all about Drew Brees. The best prices of the year already at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. U.S. only, valid through December 2nd. While supplies last. See stores for details. Drew Brees. I'm going to weigh in on that. Coming up, Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
We're back on Wednesday, and Notre Dame is up to number 2 in the country thanks to the play of quarterback Ian Book. He joins us Wednesday at 9:30 on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on ESPN Radio.
More from the Max Kellerman Show next.
Get in the zone, AutoZone. Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Taking on that next oil change yourself is a great idea. We can help you get started. Right now, you can get 5 quarts of Castrol Edge full synthetic motor oil and an STP extended life oil filter for just $31.99. You can even get it all fast your way with our next day delivery or free same-day store pickup. Getting the job done just got easier. Restrictions and details at AutoZone.com.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Allstate now has deeper savings, and deeper savings require deep thoughts and a deep voice, like mine. Save for being a new customer. Save more for adding DriveWise, and save even more for driving safely. Visit Allstate.com or contact your local agent for a quote today. As someone once said, saving today is money tomorrow. That's deep.
Not available in every state. New customer savings based on early signing discount. DriveWise is an optional feature. Savings vary based on how you buy. Subject to terms and conditions. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
At Cutwater, we believe you should be able to take your cocktail anywhere. So we took our award-winning spirits, used them to make real cocktails.